So can you just tell me a little bit about, oxalate and kind of what is it, how it's bad for us?
Yeah, oxalate's fascinating. And when I first started learning about oxalate, the person who triggered me to even imagine this was a woman who's got a lay background. She's not a public health person, nutrition person like me, but she was right near where I was in North Carolina, like probably living or working 45 minutes from where I was. And if I'd known her, I would have invited her to our integrative medicine conference and to faculty development conferences, but I didn't. And so I learned about it through her, that oxalate is something that can affect extrarenal tissues. Now, in college, my textbooks textbooks have double columns in them. And so
Hmm.
imagine an inch and a half of one column. That's the whole amount in that textbook. And in some textbooks, two different authors. The way textbooks are written is there's this editor guy with the vision, and then he picks out people to write the chapters. And each
Hmm.
chapter person is writing pretty much in isolation, and then the editor has to kind of make it all work as a book. And so the other chapter has another inch and a half devoted to oxalate with two totally different lists about which foods have oxalate in them and what it means. And like it's so limited. So the people who choose to write textbooks don't cover this generally. And our professors, especially people like Dr. Colin Campbell, who is believing in vegetables and vegetarianism, don't find this a compelling topic, which is makes no sense if you actually understand the topic. But understanding the
Hmm.
topic does require a lot of devotion because it has been spread across the literature for 230 years, and it's spread across these different professions. And sometime in probably the mid 20th century, we decided that the thing about oxalate that mattered was the kidney stones. And I have to say, as a woman, now you may find this as a very sexist comment, but the people who fund research, the people who decide who gets funding. Now, I know a lot about this because I've worked in the field of getting research dollars and how bad it's gotten. And I didn't really feel too bad about quitting my job because I was sort of tired of the system and how it isn't working for innovation. Like young researchers like you who are ready to be freed up to think broader have a harder time getting the leaders in their field to approve their wacky ideas.
Oh
Right?
yeah.
So there's a lot of middle-aged men are the people who get kidney stones. And they're the same guys
Mm.
who decide who gets research funding. We women, despite our ibuprofen addiction and our high use of oxalate foods, can pee out crystals like crazy. And I mean, I must have super tubules that can dilate the heck out of themselves. I'm really proud of my dilating tubules, and I'm so glad you told me why I've been peeing out clouds and clouds and clouds of urine. Like I've been giving urine samples for years that are really whitey, cloudy, messy, not nice. Good urine looks crystal clear, like you've just dropped a drop of food dye in it and it's watery. But my
Hmm.
urine is most of the time not. It's very cloudy, and that could be an indicator of light refracting off of crystals, and that's called crystalluria. And I've
Hmm.
been somehow remarkably able to produce crystalline urine for decades, despite the ibuprofen. Now, your average guy might be more prone to be that turning into kidney stones. And there's lots of reasons for that. We're trying to figure that out, like the hormones and so on. But one thing that's clear in my research is that the thing that's protecting me is my kidney superpower, not only to dilate, but to develop and produce these proteins that prevent those crystals from becoming a kidney stone. So
Yeah.
they come out as separate crystals, little things that the tubules can release. But once those crystals start clumping and aggregating, they become a stone. And they're aggregating because the pH isn't right and there's not enough of these proteins and citrate that's interfering with that clumping. Normally, our kidneys are designed to prevent that clumping. And women are particularly good at that. Unfortunately, that is a very inflammatory process, having to protect your kidneys from crystals all the time. The crystals are constantly irritating cells in ways that cause
Hmm.
membrane and cell damage. When cells start leaking stuff, the immune system takes that to great offense. They don't think their cells should be sick and leaking stuff. They believe that that's a sign of an attack from like bacteria and
Hmm.
dangerous things. So they say, oh, danger, danger, leaking cells. And so by having crystals in your urine all the time, you're turning on inflammatory problems and you're creating inflammation somewhere. And the sad thing is that many cells do this and produce these kind of compounds that tell the body that inflammation is required here because we're under threat by a threatening compound or a threatening organism. And so the chronic use of high oxalate foods can produce lots of inflammatory related problems, and it doesn't have to be just the kidneys that are suffering. In fact, that's the sad thing, is that by noting the obvious problem of a kidney stone, which is hard to miss, it's hard to overlook a serious kidney stone because a person starts screaming in agony and ends up in life-threatening situations, because what makes a kidney stone especially bad for you is it's blocking the flow of urine, and backing up the flow of urine creates all kinds of problems. The one of the problems that used to always kill people is infection, because if you part
Hmm.
of the why the kidneys stay in the bladder and everything stays healthy is that there's always movement of fluids are constantly circulating. You stop the circulation of fluids and then infection can occur, and that's what used to make kidney stones so deadly and dangerous. But the chronic poor functioning of an inflamed kidney leads to total body derangements on electrolytes and other compounds that allow cells to work properly. So upstream, the toxicity that happens from poor functioning kidneys can cause all kinds of health problems. But that's our perspective of funding kidney stone research is the primary problem that oxalates cause, because calcium oxalate stone in the kidneys is a big problem, and most kidney stones are made of oxalate. That's a big problem, but by focusing all our energy there, we're missing the bigger story
Hmm.
of the fact that oxalate can damage cells, cause them to leak, turn on inflammation, turn on fibrotic processes, turn on disease processes that can play out in a number of ways. And that's what sometimes we call a terrain issue, like the terrain of my
Hmm.
genetics, my femaleness, my whatever, my nutritional status, my lifestyle can affect how a toxin like oxalate plays out in my health.